According to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, there were 4,585 cases reported in 2019. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is rapidly growing, and around the world, more than 40 million people are trafficked. In order for us to fully understand the realities of human trafficking, we must first explore what human trafficking is. Second, we will discuss who is affected and how, and finally, we will conclude with the solution to this pressing issue. So first, let's discuss human trafficking as a crime. Human trafficking is a global issue, but people are not exactly aware of what is considered human trafficking. Human trafficking includes the capturing of victims for benefits of the perpetrator. According to a crime article, Human Trafficking, that was written by Alice Wooditch and Leonard Severson, the United Nations divides human trafficking into three categories: sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and the removal of organs, and defines human trafficking as the induction by force, fraud, or coercion of a person to engage in sex trade, or the harboring, transportation, or obtaining a person for labor, service, or organ removal. The authors of this article are experts on crime and race and inform their readers that it is much more than illegal prostitution as what most people think it is. Since it is a global issue, human trafficking affects all genders and all ages. Females are often the ones that we identify with human trafficking, but they are not the only focus. The consequence of human trafficking is that it becomes conflicted with prostitution, which has a negative impact on those who engage voluntarily in sex work. Additionally, the disproportionate focus on female trafficking obscures the violence and human rights violations that are experienced by men and children, in addition to the women who are trafficked from other forms of labor. That was a quote from Janina Paninsky, who wrote a 2015 article on human trafficking and how it violates our human rights. She writes for the UN Migration Network, and she acknowledges that it is, once again, more than just sex work, but manual labor such as serving or having to do tasks against free will. Unfortunately, there are many causes that make human trafficking more easier than it sounds. Perpetrators get away with it very easily because the targeted victims are usually from impoverished families, uneducated countries, or have no access of protection of their human rights. According to a UNICEF article, traffickers look for people living in poverty, those who are desperate, those without legitimate job options, those without educational opportunities, and the ones looking for a way to escape violence. UNICEF is an organization that helps children all across the globe, and they really have a focus on human trafficking, and they're doing all that they can to raise money to fight against it. And speaking of money, human trafficking is huge supply and demand. According to UNICEF, there also is an increased demand from consumers for cheap goods and cheap labor, which often forces those at the bottom of the supply chain to exploit workers. Secondly, there is increased demand for commercial sex, especially with young girls and boys. This again happens with victims who are uneducated or poor, young children who have no idea what is going on and they get taken. They are uneducated on what to do when a stranger comes up to them. Some are in desperate need of money and trying to help and take care of their family, and they will do anything that they can for that opportunity. Human trafficking is an enormous violation of human rights, and the only way to solve the problem is to help those who do not receive that correct attention from governments. Society can be a part in this solution. But first, we'll take a look at what is happening with the governments. In the US, the government is beginning to see the unfair consequences of human trafficking, and they're finally doing something about it. According to the article, What is the US Government Doing to Combat Human Trafficking? There are three things that must be done: prevent, protect, and prosecute. In 2017, Departments of State and Labor and the U.S. Agency for International Development managed a total of 120 international counter-human trafficking projects, and that ran across 40 different countries. Now, Watchblog, who gave us this quote on our article, follows the government's activity on how federal taxes are being used, and these programs are some of the organizations that the government pays for, and it is incredible that they are using our tax money for that. We are already doing some, but society can do much more. We can help educate those who are underprivileged and really just talk about the whole entire issue, because those who don't know what's going on need to know what's going on, and knowledge is power, and if we have power, then we can fix the problem. Today, we discussed the crimes of human trafficking, explored the targeted victims, evaluated why human trafficking is even occurring, and finally, we explored the actions being taken to eradicate these crimes. Human trafficking does not have to be something that we have to fear. We can decrease the number of cases across the world one person at a time. Every little thing you do helps. There are multiple organizations. One I mentioned earlier, UNICEF. A second one is December, in which you raise money and it goes against slavery. And there are so many opportunities to join the fight and use your voice, because there are so many people out there who can't use theirs, and it is our duty to speak up for them.